Moscow has delivered its bluntest warning yet at the United Nations. Russia says the era of patience is over. Any Ukrainian provocation will be answered decisively, and Kyiv should abandon illusions of Western rescue. This is Russia drawing a red line, publicly before the world.
From 3 to 9 January, the Russian armed forces carried out 1 large-scale and 4 group strikes, which hit transport, airfield, port, and energy infrastructure facilities, supporting the operation of Ukraine's military-industrial complex, as well as temporary deployment sites of the Ukrainian armed forces and foreign mercenaries. These strikes were conducted in response to an attack by the Kyiv regime on the residence of the President of the Russian Federation and on civilian infrastructure facilities in our country. The strikes involved the use of the Oreshnik system, against which there are no air defense countermeasures. Our Western colleagues lecture us about civilian casualties, the majority of which, as is well known, including to Ukrainians themselves, are the result of the operation of Ukrainian air defense systems.
Vasily Nebenzia makes it clear. The longer Zelensky delays realism, the harsher the outcome becomes. Moscow says negotiations will not improve for Kyiv with time. They will deteriorate. Every day of defiance tightens the pressure, politically and militarily.
Suddenly, the European Commission has begun to speak of the fact that at some stage the EU will have to engage in dialogue with Russia. One cannot help but ask, where were you before? We have never closed ourselves off from dialogue. It was you who arrogantly assumed that this would never be necessary, believing that Russia would be dealt a strategic defeat. Until the leader in Kyiv comes to his senses and agrees to realistic negotiating terms, we will continue to resolve issues by military means. He was warned of this in due time. With every day he loses, the conditions for negotiations will only worsen for him. And every treacherous attack on peaceful Russian civilians will be met with a tough response.
Russia accuses the Kyiv regime of systematic war crimes, deliberately targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure. The strike on Korli in the Kherson region is described as particularly cynical, an attack with no military purpose, only terror. Moscow says this exposes the true face of Zelensky's rule. According to Russia, the West is not a mediator, but an enabler. The United States, NATO, and the European Union are accused of shielding Kyiv, while fueling escalation with weapons, intelligence, and political cover. Moscow says this collective hypocrisy is collapsing under the weight of facts.
Dialogue should be pursued instead of confrontation. No matter how serious a conflict or how deep the divisions, the ultimate path must return to dialogue and negotiation. The momentum for the current new round of talks has not been easy to achieve and should be cherished by all parties. We call on the involved parties to move towards each other, continuously build consensus, pay attention to and properly address each other's security concerns, and reach a comprehensive, lasting agreement as soon as possible. The international community must offer more objective, balanced, and rational voices to help realize the vision of peace at an early date. The ongoing spillover effects of the crisis have already caused severe impacts on the global economy. China opposes any party using the crisis as a pretext to impose illegal unilateral sanctions, to suppress normal trade and economic exchanges, and rejects attempts to exploit the situation to divide the world or create exclusive closed blocs.
Nebenzia states plainly that Russia will resolve the conflict by military means until Kyiv comes to its senses. He warns that no hostile act will go unanswered, and that Western-backed impunity for Ukraine is finished. The message: force will meet force. Moscow positions this moment as a turning point. It says the The Kyiv regime is losing credibility, support, and strategic ground, while Europe follows Washington into a dead end. Russia insists the choice remains simple: realism now or consequences later.